So wastewater treatment business is about offering the service and also about investing in solution for wastewater treatment to increase the access to sanitation in general and also to provide treated wastewater. This is, I think, it's a huge market in our countries and all around the world because there is still almost 41% of the world population don't have this service. Why do you think, since it's a huge market for private business and for any kind of business to be involved, why do you think there's still lack of providing such service in our country?
Wastewater is taken as a high-level risk business. Why? Because it gives very little returns, especially to African business. So people doesn't want to venture into this one. And also there is also a lack of role models. We don't have like small-scale businesses who are thriving in African continent. So young people cannot venture into this kind of business. And lastly, there is higher administrative cost. For example, in government, we have what we call red tape or bureaucracy, whereby if you want to venture into business, maybe you need to jump into maybe 5, 6 offices before you are allowed to venture into that kind of business. So that is why this wastewater treatment is not thriving in our continent.
I think I agree with what my colleague has just said. Speaking specifically for administrative costs, I know that part of the administrative cost comes in the form of taxes. So once there are taxes here that are meant to be able to sustain these particular services, they increase the administrative cost in this particular sector. And then also I feel that there's lack of knowledge of opportunities that arise in this particular. People don't know the opportunities that are in this particular sector. So, and that is the reason why there are not so many players, I feel.
So maybe for my home country, the situation is quite different in a sense that we have those services being provided that relates to wastewater. In fact, the environment is even competitive for such businesses. But perhaps there's a sense in which such services are being provided by multinational companies. So perhaps we can find a way in which we can incorporate the locals so as to also play a role in that area and not only be, just consumers, but also play a critical and a vital role that has to do with wastewater.
I find this point quite interesting. Speaking of a way in which the locals can come on board, I think it reminds me of the fact that our governments do not have the capacity to reach out to all places. And so there's an opportunity there. I see an opportunity where you can go into that particular area where the government is not handling and provide such a service. Except one thing, that of course you'll be faced with high capital cost.
But I think even if there is a need for like high capital cost or any kind of like major start your business, I think it will be overcome by working with the government or along with the government. So if the government cannot reach, as you said, everywhere, you could help them to reach. You could work with them to reach the places that, for example, improve the systems that already in the place that reached by the government, and improve also the channels of the government that they're trying to reach. So I think working along with the government will decrease or increase the problem or the issues related to the cost of starting or the capital or to start your business. I think this is a good way of thinking about starting your own business also. Really.
That's indeed a very creative way to really look at it. I admire that way of thinking. Yes, I think as opposed to having to think of competing with government, which is almost unattainable, you could think about the way in which you can assist the government efforts by maybe being a supplier, for instance, and see how this particular sector can thrive.
I think very interesting points that have been mentioned related to, for example, the administrative cost, which is related to enabling the environment and also access to finance and business development, and also all the issues related to business service in our countries. And I'm not speaking only about like individual entrepreneurs. I'm speaking also about small and medium and even big companies. They're all facing those kind of issues. So how could we think of solving those issues, like us today discussing this issue, and how could we participate individually in solving this issue?
It always to all of us, the stakeholders. I think we need to build an enabling environment, conducive environment, whereby this wastewater treatment business should thrive. I think Abesan, you can agree with me because we are neighbors.
That's very true, Kenford. Indeed, giving an example from my country, I think the efforts have been made to ensure that there is increased participation in the various sectors. For instance, we do have a policy that talks about 20% subcontracting on all major contracts. So then it allows the locals to also participate. So we could borrow such a concept, apply it in the water sector. You see more players coming on board and we'll be able to solve the issue at hand.
Maybe to add on my colleague who is a neighbor from Zambia, I think we need also to ask our mothers, which are the governments, maybe they should also take an initiative, especially maybe to give a zero import duty to the equipments which are related to wastewater, which is going to boost the morale of small-scale businesses to start businesses like myself as well. I think I can also start if that thing happens as well.
That's quite interesting, really interesting indeed. You know, speaking from out of what he has just said, I recall yet another scenario in my country where the government is promoting renewable energy, investment in renewable energy. They've lowered the tax. And I think in the sector of agriculture, the government has said that should you bring in any equipment for agriculture, which is very critical for food security, that will give you zero tax. So I think such incentives brought in this particular field of water, I think will go a long way.
Another way at which I think of while sitting here is perhaps partnership, in a way that we find ways to partner with well-established companies in our home countries. I think in that way we should not only think of partnering with government per se, but also look at the private sector.
Maybe in addition to partnering with maybe private sector, we're also talking about international companies. Now we'll be looking for companies who have efficient technology. Now this technology, is it safe for the environment? We need to have that vision of treating water efficiently and effectively, but also preserving the environment that we live in. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, speaking of partnerships, you are aware, colleagues, that I think everywhere you go, people will be asking you to say, if we have to partner, what is it that you'll be bringing on the table? And that would be the question that, for instance, was posing on this forum to say, what is it that we'll be offering on the table?
I think what we can be offering on the table, we're talking now, maybe we're in Japan, right? You would want to partner with a Japanese company. I think for us, we know the market, we know how Africans do business. We can assist in terms of now how do we do negotiations with Africans, how do we perform in business, stuff like that. I think we can add value to the whole process of partnership.
Yeah, and maybe not only that, I think being awarded an opportunity to study and also intern here in Japan, I think we possess quite very rare skills and knowledge after coming here. So of course on the table we might also bring such skills and knowledge so as to contribute towards that partnership.
And I think also that we have been away from our countries for a while now, and that we're believing in giving back, and we're believing in the vision of having access to all the population in our country in terms of wastewater. Also will participate in terms of what we are offering. We are believing into that vision. We're not just trying to work for something that we're not believing in. And also speaking about what we can offer individually, I believe that when we're speaking about business and how can we improve the environment of business, we could also think about specific situation of our countries. In my country, Sudan, I think improving the business environment will take a little bit time, but what I can participate in as individual is to create research, provide the knowledge, provide the information, because every company in the world that wants to do work in my country, either local or international company, we need a market information. We need how many people have access to this kind of system, how many people have this and X and Y. So those kind of information, I think I individually could participate in that, and this is the mindset also that we need to think about, how we could participate without thinking about who could do that instead of us. I think that I truly enjoyed the discussion today. We spoke about that we need to admit that there is issue about business environment in our countries, and we need to think how we could participate in solving those issues with different kind of solution initiatives, individual initiatives, or how could our government and stakeholders could change those kind of issues related to the business environment. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.